Hey, good morning. Welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. Albeit a bit later, I was deep in the throes of kind of an intense, yet slightly troubled sleep last night. It was an interesting night to try to get some rest. Let's put it that way. There's a lot going on, and I'm just going to hang out here for a little bit. Some of you are probably getting the notification that I am live. And again, I apologize for being, usually on Mondays, maybe 9:15, but today, almost a full hour later, only because yours truly was trying to recover from kind of a heavy night of trying to rest. And I know you've probably given him, oh, Robert's not going to be doing a show today, but I will always do my show to the best of my ability. I will be here. Megan, here you go. She's in the house. Me too. It was the worst. There's Kestrel. Sleep was rough. Yeah, boy. It was a hard one last night. Christine. Hi, Christine. We'll get back to you today. T. Jordan. Hello. Good morning. Lils. Leanne. Hi, Leanne. Leanne Barber. Ian Barber. Natasha. There she is. There's Faith. Double V. Danica Rose, Laura D. They're crimmies. I slept until 10. Wow. Yeah. Tina Sherman. Hi, Tina. Tamara Garth. Hardly slept at all last night. So it looks like everybody's having a hard time sleeping. So my issue with sleeping really had to do with I've got this weird kind of back chest issue, which is I'm going to hit the chiropractor later tomorrow, but it's been extremely painful, especially when I lay down. I can't even lay down. Last night I couldn't even lay down because the pain was so intense. So at about 2 a.m, I had to go into my living room and literally sleep sitting up on my couch. It was very intense. So tomorrow we'll hit the chiropractor and we'll see what they can do. Not a fun kind of senior moment. Let's put it that way. Anyway, but I'm here, and as I begin to kind of get back into my skin and my cells, we'll get it together. Let's see. Sherlock, sleep has not been solid. Yeah, my problem wasn't sleeping. I was waking up. Laurel Jubin, I was up at 3 a.m. but got back to sleep a couple hours later. That's interesting. Casey and Jax, Lex, sleep. What's that? Oh, that's funny. Christy says we're in the house. Yeah. So this back thing has been problematic. Anyway, I don't want to get into it. I don't like talking about my physical ills. Mary Black, I dreamed I was getting ready for a long softball game. What is it? A bog softball game? Looking for the right shoes to wear. Wearing the right shoes playing softball is important. That's for damn sure. Sorry to hear about your back pain. Yeah, it is what it is. I just have to tend to it and deal with it and make sure that that it will respond during a shit hits the fan kind of moment in time. A big softball game. Oh, big. Okay. Got it. Big softball game. Well, a softball game of importance. Misplayed softball. Not that I played a lot of it, but when I did play it, I did enjoy it. I always felt softball was kind of cliquey. It was hard to get on teams. It was very hard to get on teams. I remember that. There was like this weird kind of arcane sort of process of getting on teams. And I tried to. They should have had me on their team. She's a pretty good player. Let's see. I have REM sleep disorder. I never sleep properly. Is that a breathing issue? Is that what happens sometimes? Because it can be. Let's see. JP Love in the house. 1-0 Dragon Kara McLaughlin. What's going on? And anybody else? Have I left out anybody else? Okay, so there's a lot happening. Boy, 24 hours. I mean, after last night's show, I started to hit the internet, and boy, did things really pop. Things have really popped. So let me give you the latest updates here. All right, with what's going on with Joe Biden. Before that, let's bring in a little divine protection here. Hello, Beth. Good morning, Charles. Have you heard about the Great Barrington Declaration? 35 doctors worldwide regarding. Yes, I have. I have heard about that. In fact, I've seen some of them actually speak on video. All right, let's go. Dear blessed Mother, Father God of the great central sun within universal light, which is light of Yeshua, Son of Emmanuel. We ask that only the highest and best information, truth, and wisdom come through this channel at this time. And as a result, we are blessed and graced with the qualities of intelligence and patience and endurance, alertness, fortitude, plenitude, gratitude, flexibility, strength, courage, heart, humility, openness, empathy, compassion, humor, fun, joy, intelligence, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed. So be it. Let's get going. Hey, Sherry Lewin, good to see you. Good to see you. What's happening? Let's see. Ryan's here. Masaki's tools to help my neck and back. Good. That's really good. You know, Ryan is an incredible woodworker. I should get you guys this box he made. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go get it. So I just wanted to show you this. This is some of Ryan's work here. Look at this. Look at the quality of the wood there. Look at that. You know, we got a two-tone on the back. You see that? Then we have this really nice piece of wood here. And the drawer is nicely lined with some felt. You see that right there? So, Ryan, I don't know if you have a website set up so that you can sell your wares. You brought a lot of this to the event in the Hill Country, and just quality craftsmanship right there. Beautiful stuff. Anyway, just wanted to give my man Ryan a little plug. All right. Where do we start? All right. So apparently now there are 3 hard drives, okay? And here's where the story gets interesting. There is supposedly the hard drive that Hunter Biden left on his computer at the shop in Delaware. Okay. There are now supposedly 3 hard drives, and there's a guy by the name of Lou Day. Let me see if I can find him. And he's been doing these shows in Mandarin, these YouTube shows in Mandarin. And he apparently has been working with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has been going through the CCP and getting everything he can, while Rudy Giuliani has been mining the Ukrainian side of things. This is what it's looking like. It's the old Sagittarian Gemini tag team And this guy, Lou Day, has been talking about these 3 hard drives. And I've been trying to find the original story, but I've been trying to track it down, which I should have just linked to it last night and got the bookmark. But the 3 hard drives apparently have 3 very specific kinds of information, and it's highly unusual information. And these are hard drives that have been smuggled out of the CCP. And the one hard drive we know is pretty much connected to Hunter Biden's computer, and it shows everything between Hunter Biden and Joe, Ukraine, and China. And apparently there are highly incriminating videos of Hunter Biden. Now, I'm not sure if that's on Hunter Biden's laptop that they have, right? That stuff may be on one of these other hard drives where apparently he is torturing these young Chinese gals. But here's where it gets really interesting and weird. Okay, on the second hard drive, there apparently is a genetic map of US politicians who are related to the CCP, and meaning that they have paternal or maternal relationships to the CCP going back, I don't know, at least 1 to 2 generations. And one of the people that's mentioned in or shows up on one of these hard drives, and the reason why this is important is because the people that are connected genetically are also connected monetarily. Like they have been sort of given the resources in order to be inside the US to do certain things, undermine the government. So this is a very interesting kind of wrinkle and plan. And one of the people that has been kind of fingered in this event is, or on this hard drive, is Michael Bloomberg. And I want to show you a picture of Michael Bloomberg's mother, okay? Especially when she's young. I want to show you a picture of Michael Bloomberg's mother. It's going to kind of blow your mind. I don't know if you've ever really spent much time looking at Michael Bloomberg's mother, but check this photo out. Right there. This is Michael Bloomberg's mother. Wow. Let's see. Come on. Get back to the old. All right, there she is. Oh, I fucking hate this with the New York Times. You bastard New York Times. They always do this with me. Always do this with me. All right, hold on. I'm going to find the same picture, a different source. Hold on. Same picture, different source. And in fact, maybe I'll just do it back here in this image. 1 sec. So Michael Bloomberg, check out Michael Bloomberg's mother. Here, let's go right back. That's her. Michael Bloomberg's mother looks Chinese. Now, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a kind of a wacky conspiracy, but she actually looks Chinese. And as she gets older, it doesn't really go away. And in fact, she continues to have kind of an Asian look about her. Here she is again, looking slightly Asian. And as she gets older, she still looks slightly Asian. And here she is again, looking slightly Asian. Look at that, right? Look at this. This is really odd. Very, very odd. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, what was really going on with the People's Revolution? What was really happening during that time? Was it just this kind of brute force and annihilation, you know, by Mao of Chiang Kai-shek? Or was there something else going on in China that we're not even really aware of? Because she also has the red hair. Now, maybe this is her with a dye job, but there are also a group of red haired people who were known to be in China and even in some ways pre existing what we would call the Chinese. And she's always shown with red hair. Maybe this is a red herring. I don't know. But this picture is just so unusual, right? Like she looks so. This is the one to me that's really kind of the smoking gun right here. She looks totally Asian there. Totally Asian. And what's also been interesting, or is interesting, is the relationship between the Chinese and the Jewish people. I think for a long period of time, the books that were on the bestseller list in China were having to do with the Kabbalah, sort of like Kabbalah as a self-help manual, you know? So it's pretty clear that Mr. Bloomberg's father is not Asian, but his mother is a different story. So this is some of the info on this second hard drive that essentially makes these genetic connections. It's very strange and odd stuff. It's like highly, highly, highly conspiratorial in a very interesting kind of way. The way that I find fairly interesting. So there are accusations of other people who fit the same bill, one of whom is Dianne Feinstein. So I went back in time to try to look at some of Dianne Feinstein's photos. And it's been pretty interesting watching these allegations of Feinstein and the her Chinese chauffeur, and how her Chinese chauffeur has been part of the CCP and a spy, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when we look at photos of Dianne Feinstein, can we see a hint of perhaps some Asiatic blood or Asiatic genetics in her background? And in certain photos, especially as she gets older, her eyes start to get, a little more closed in some ways, right? But, it's just the byproduct of aging. I mean, would it be a stretch to say that this woman might have Asiatic blood in her? I don't think so. I think there's a possibility. When she was young, she was a somewhat attractive woman. But there was this one picture that really grabbed my attention. Here she is when she's younger. Okay. But there was this one picture that really grabbed my attention. And it wasn't as much to do with her. Look at those eyes. Jesus. It wasn't as much to do with her physiognomy as it was with her kind of historical context. So I'm going to show you something. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can do this. Find that picture. Again, this could just be circumstantial evidence and yada, yada, yada. But there is a photo of her. Let me see if I can find it. With a particular group of people. And here's another one of her. Let's see. All right, here we go. Let me go back to screen share. I mean, this is really kind of a far out idea in a lot of ways, but one that I think is quite interesting, because if you were intent on influencing a government, wouldn't you want to have your racial descendants inside of that government? And Dianne Feinstein's rise to power is, again, she's looking a little slightly Asiatic here. I'm just saying. Dianne Feinstein's rise to power is fairly controversial and happens in the wake of the George Moscone, Harvey Milk, Dan White supposed assassination attempt and everything that went down here. All right, let me see if I can find this one photo again. It's here she is. Look at that. She's looking a little Asiatic in that photo, right? Just slightly. Just slightly. And the whole thing is kind of mind-blowing that there could be this sort of long-term genetic and breeding program so that you would have people in place. And in both instances, both Bloomberg and Feinstein are supposedly Jewish. But at the same time, it really looks like Bloomberg's mother is part Asian. Okay, so let me see this. This is this one photo. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, exactly. Okay. This is quite interesting. And again, you know, is this going to be some sort of a smoking gun? I don't know, but it's an interesting sort of piece of circumstantial evidence. So Mayor Dianne Feinstein welcomes first students from Shanghai. No, isn't that interesting? Right? Isn't that interesting? You know, why her? I guess she was mayor of San Francisco at that time. But there we go. Look, oh, she's all happy. The first students from Shanghai. For 35 years, the Shanghai and San Francisco Conservatories of Music have cultivated a special relationship. The first students from the Shanghai Conservatory came to study in San Francisco in 1981. Only 1 year after leaders from San Francisco and Shanghai signed the first sister city agreement, the United States and China. Over the next few decades, many of Shanghai's most promising graduates came to San Francisco Conservatory to continue their training. So it's Feinstein under her mayorship that signs the agreement between Shanghai and San Francisco to basically open up a pathway for Chinese students, in quotes, spies, to come into the United States. This is fascinating stuff. This is really fascinating stuff. And for me, the fascinating piece seems to be the interface between Feinstein and Bloomberg and their so-called Jewish roots, and potentially also having this kind of Asiatic part of their DNA chain as well, setting them up as being these conduits for money to flow through into the United States. And apparently there's more people on this hard drive, and it kind of is like mind blowing if this is the case. And look, I would say that these governments operate in such clandestine fashion, and the Chinese play well ahead of the game, right? So they've been working on things for well over 100 years in order to insert themselves into the West. So I don't know who else is on that hard drive, but those are two people that are mentioned, and the connections with Pelosi. I'm sorry, Feinstein, and China and San Francisco, and at times herself even looking slightly Asiatic, are interesting. And the Bloomberg piece with his mother is very telling in a lot of ways. And I think Pelosi was mentioned too as being sort of part of this this kind of group. And she seems to be, on the surface, perhaps less obvious in terms of her genealogical roots. So let's look at a photo here of Nancy Pelosi's family, the D'Alessandros, seeming quite Italian, and not perhaps as Asiatic as the Bloomberg influence, or potentially even the Feinstein. No, with Feinstein, it's very hard to find photos of her parents, by the way. I looked quite a bit. And here we can see the early photos of Nancy Pelosi and her family, the D'Alessandro family. So there's Mama Pelosi and all the Pelosi boys. And it looks like that's Nancy right there. That's a very young Nancy Pelosi. And the boys looking quite sort of Italian-esque in some ways. Although people have made a point of sort of articulating that Pelosi comes from a group of people from Spain, and that they're actually Marrano Jews from Spain, and that the Italian side of the family kind of merged into that. So I can't vouch for that, but it would not surprise me at some level. So this idea of these sort of genetic modifiers inside of political leaders is certainly an interesting one. And apparently it's on this second hard drive. Now, the third hard drive contains very specific information about not just the quote-unquote Wuhan virus, but other gain-of-function biological weapons that the Chinese have deployed in the past, including H1N1 and SARS. So we've got 3 hard drives with huge, huge smoking guns, apparently. Now, the guy that's behind it is, or at least supposedly, is Steve Bannon. And I'm going to show you, what is that? The picture with Bloomberg's mother is really a trip, right? And and then Pelosi's connection with China is undeniable. And even going back to 1980, and 1980 is right when she becomes mayor of San Francisco. And the first thing she does is open up this relationship with Shanghai. It's quite interesting. So let's get into a little Steve Bannon here. And Bannon has been working with, was it Miles Guoc? The billionaire. Every time I see something on Steve Bannon's face, I think it's something on my computer, but I tried to scrape it off, but it actually is on Steve Bannon's face. It's weird. Okay. All right. Let's see. Lee Stranahan. I have many criticisms of Bannon, like ignoring my warnings in 27. The Ukraine story was going to be a deal. But I can't think of a single example of him saying he had the goods on the story that didn't pan out. If he says a lot more is coming, he's not shooting blanks. To review, last month, New York Post set off a nuclear bomb when they released evidence from younger Biden's hard drive obtained by Rudy Giuliani after a computer repair shop owner initially approached the FBI. We know that story. And Steve Bannon is the master of ceremonies for this October surprise. According as former Breitbart journalist Lee Stranahan, who's not exactly Bannon's biggest fan, puts it, I can't think of a single example of him saying he had the goods on the story that didn't pan out. If he says a lot more is coming, he's not shooting blanks. So Bannon has, I think, come into possession of these other hard drives. So we have the Hunter Biden hard drive, which shows the connections between Hunter Biden, Ukraine, his father, and there's some Chinese material on there as well. But these two other hard drives that are supposedly out there are the ones that are the most alarming. If this is true, and if Bannon has these hard drives in his possession, because you have to remember now, he has been working with Miles Block very intensively for the last year and a half. I mean, he has gone headfirst into the whole China thing. Right? He's gone headfirst into it. Now, one of the reasons why China is such a big deal is not because they have been bribing American politicians and have the goods on American politicians, but they have also been actively building out the Belt and Road Initiative. And that's really what they want to pump the brakes on, is Belt and Road. And Belt and Road, if you're not aware of, is the Chinese strategy of linking China up with Europe, going through Eurasia, Russia, parts of the Middle East, and even North Africa. And it's all going to be linked by train, high-speed train, and marine craft if they have to move goods across a body of water. And it was all going to be heavy 5G. Like the entire Belt and Road would be 5G centric, and they would use a cryptocurrency. And the one that had been kind of targeted was Ripple XRP, so that they could remove SWIFT as the de facto kind of transfer technology of funds between companies and countries, more specifically. So the One Belt, One Road initiative would not just end in Europe, but would also extend into places like South America, which is why the Chinese have been building out the relationship with the Venezuelans to a large extent and giving them certain technologies, specifically their universal ID card, which they've been working on. So the Chinese have been building out this infrastructure for a while. And this is, I think, ultimately what the plan is that they have to stop One Belt, One Road. Because if China completes One Belt, One Road, then they literally have world dominance in terms of trade and even the transfer of digital currencies. Now, there's a group of people who obviously want this to happen because they want China to be the new power of the 21st century. And they've been built up to do exactly that. And now it appears that the West, the so-called West of the United States, is theoretically pumping the brakes on this thing. But is it too little too late at this stage of the game? Because it's pretty clear that China has its hooks in New Zealand, has its hooks in Australia, has its hooks in Canada, and has its hooks in Hawaii at this point. And what happens if the information on these hard drives is true and that these hard drives do exist, which I believe they probably do? That they probably, like Steve, here's what I think happened. I think Steve Bannon and this guy Miles Guoq has a lot of money, and the Chinese have been asking for his extradition for a very long time. And he has a lot of money. He shows up on Tucker Carlson every now and then. And I think between Miles Guoq's money and the promise of sanctuary, that they were able to go in to high-level members of the CCP and acquire this information because of a rift inside of the CCP. So I think between money and the promise of sanctuary, they were able to get these hard drives. And these are probably the equivalent, that these hard drives would be the equivalent of like the keys to America's nuclear arsenal. That's how significant potentially this stuff is. I mean, that's what's being alluded. So the kind of the lurid imagery and the lurid video on the Hunter Biden stuff is, fairly important in that it shows a history of being able to compromise politicians. But what's interesting here is that that this is also something that happens quite frequently in Israel, and that American politicians will go to Israel and they will, go there on a junket, and they're having a great time and a great dinner and grilled lamb and dolmas, and the next thing they know, they wake up in the morning and they're sleeping next to a 12-year-old, right? And this happens. This is not uncommon. And now all of a sudden they're compromised. It's like, oh, gee, you had a really great time. Look at all the pictures we have of you. And not uncommon, by the way. Extortion has been a very prevalent theme throughout history in terms of getting people to do what you want them to do politically. The China story is sort of mirroring the quote unquote Israeli story. And I'm not saying that they're deflecting from one story to the other, and maybe the two are intertwined in a lot of ways. But if I was China and these things are true, then I would be very nervous, because it would compromise just about everything that the Chinese have been working towards, probably even prior to the People's Revolution. So if that's the case, then what would China be willing and capable of doing if this kind of information or something relative, because I know this is really way out there, and will the American public be able to kind of stomach this idea that these people, these politicians, have been part of this sort of genetic breeding program, so that they would be recipients of this largesse and this wealth, and then curry and influence favor. I mean, it's pretty far out there. I'm not sure many Americans would be willing to accept that. Right. However, that said, would they be willing to accept information on the origin of these bioweapons, gain of function, and not just the Chinese, but who's also been involved with them here in this country and abroad? I think the answer to that would be unequivocally yes. So this is huge. And if this moves forward, this alters the geopolitical landscape in ways that could be very hard to comprehend. I mean, we really have to sit down and go through every single iteration of where China and its influence in terms of industry, production, uh, financial holdings. It would be a very, very kind of detailed and probably at times boring in some ways excavation of all these fine points. But ultimately, every single one of them would be at risk and in jeopardy. Like this could be so tectonic that China, as a rising world power, could be leveled literally overnight if these things are proven to be true. Now, the American press, who have been owned by a number of people, from the Rothschilds to the Chinese, will not be cooperative in terms of disseminating this information. But at some point, it becomes so monochromatic that it will be very difficult to deny. And so the first domino to fall will be Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And if you watched last night's show, I predicted to either late Tuesday or early Wednesday is when things will get very sketchy for Biden. I don't believe he will be at the debate. Now, one of the things that if he does get to the debate, it'll be interesting to see which version of Biden gets to the debate. But one of the things that's already been cleared in the debate is there will be no discussion of foreign policy. So again, we have sort of the rules of engagement in the debate space where you're not going to be able to talk about certain things. They're kind of wall off the potential to bring this up as a subject or topic. So it'll be interesting to see how Trump deals with this. And he's going to have to take a different strategy. But the question is, which Trump will show up at the debate? So, we've talked about clones, body doubles, robotoids for a long time on this show. And how I believe well, look, when it came to Hillary Clinton, there was more than one Hillary Clinton. There were at least 3 or 4 Hillary Clintons. And of course, the famous story of Hillary Clinton was that she was campaigning in one part of New York, and then across town, another version of Hillary Clinton was spotted doing the same thing, which was kind of, unusual, but not totally out of the box. So I think there were at least 3 to 4 versions of Hillary Clinton, maybe even up to 6 versions of Hillary Clinton. And I don't know where we're at now or who this version is. But one of them expired in real time when, 9/11, 2016. So I do think that there is more than one Trump. There is certainly more than one Bush. With Bush, you got either just the complete, utter raging psychopath, or you got kind of the bumbling idiot. There was never any in between Bush. He was sort of lucid and reasonable. It was really just, darkly split. And maybe that was the byproduct of his programming and trauma, perhaps. So I ran across this video that I think is worth playing. And again, it gets into the idea of there being more than one Donald Trump, which I would not be utterly surprised of. So which Trump will show up at the debate? Which Biden will show up at the debate? I want to play the video, and this might help you understand a bit more about what I'm talking about. And it goes into red tie, blue tie. So I want to get past the intro a little bit here, but I do want to give some credit to Vrilix. This is the Vrilix channel. And this video got 5,000 views. So apparently there's some interest in it. Subscribe. Okay, this is where I want to start, right about here.
Vrilix here. I'm going to have to be careful with my language in this video. Donald Trump was recently, let's say, under the weather. However, during this period, he did not appear to really slow down much. This led to this public appearance, which has left many people skeptical about if this was the real Donald Trump. It is well documented that many celebrities, politicians, and world leaders use clones and or body doubles for a variety of reasons. Keeping this in mind and taking a look at this picture shows some inconsistencies. However, due to the mask and remaining inside the car, it's difficult to make the determination off this appearance alone. Fortunately, I covered this in a now removed video.
Yeah, the one time Trump lost, he said it was rigged. The few weeks ago when
First,
Trump
there's
lost.
two Trumps.
Okay.
The one in the red tie is the real one. The one in the blue tie is not. The one you saw last night after the victory was the blue tie. Now, if you would punch up Dr. Carson, Ben Carson, when Trump called him a pedophile, and the next day he joined Trump. And the guy asked him, see, every now and then you slip and say something. He said, why'd you do that? He said, it's two Trumps. I was with the good one. You see it there. Just punch up. When somebody interviewed him, he said, there's two Donald Trumps. That's easy to pull up. So he called him that the day before. So you know he got something on him if he gonna make him the next day say, I join you.
Dr. Ben Carson, there are two Donald Trumps.
There it is.
About America. There are two different Donald Trumps. There's the one you see on the stage, and there's the one who's very cerebral. And that's the Donald Trump that you're going to start seeing more and more of right now.
Sort of baiting personality.
You said there was two.
Are there two Donald Trumps?
There are.
But which one is running for president?
I think there are two Donald Trumps. There's the public version, and people see that, and I don't know what they see exactly, but it seems to have worked over my lifetime. But it's probably different, I think, than the personal Donald Trump. I think Ben would say that. Ben said it very well today. So perhaps there are two Donald Trumps. But
So is this all just coincidence? Where and when exactly do we draw the line and say that something is beyond the realm of coincidence? Many examples over and over pushing the same themes, ideas, and agendas. To think that all of these examples just fall into the category of mere coincidence is ridiculous. By now you should know that when it comes to the powers that be, there are no coincidences. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, this is Relax.
Okay, interesting video. And, you know, I've always been interested in this idea of body doubles and clones, you know, twins, things like that. So one of the things that perhaps this ties into, which is something that maybe people who have gotten into this subject haven't really wrapped their head around, is the fact that what if Donald Trump really is a time traveler? And what we see is a version of a time traveled Trump in current reality and a kind of contemporary evolutionary version of Donald Trump. I think this is an interesting thing to kind of wrap your head around, because there's always been this strange kind of idea or meme that has been connected with Trump and time travel. Even as it was put forth in the movie Back to the Future, I believe, 2, if I'm not mistaken, and how the character of Biff is really modeled on kind of this negative version of Donald Trump, and how he made his money through what? Gambling. Because he had an almanac which allowed him to see the results of sporting events that had already occurred, and by betting on those games made a tremendous amount of money because he knew who would win those games. So gambling has also been a part of the kind of Trump story when it relates to his casinos. So we haven't been able to really separate out, in some ways, this idea of Trump as a time traveler. You know, there's the story with him and his uncle getting a hold of, you know, Tesla's technology, right? He was sent there. The physicist uncle was sent there to grab and decode, you know, Tesla's work. Tesla's an interesting character in and of himself, as the Tartarians have looked into Tesla as being either another actor and somebody who was put up to essentially play a role of a revelator, or at the very least, someone who understood how to re-engineer the Tartarian technology so that it could be used and implemented in such a way that they could create sort of their own version of these advancements. So even Tesla himself tends to be a bit of a controversial character, but we know that historically there was somebody who played the role of Tesla. We know that there are patents associated with Tesla. In fact, the patents associated with Tesla are kind of insane. There was like 2 per day, and that's almost humanly impossible to have 2 patents per day, but that's a discussion for another time. But what if part of what, and again, I'm really getting into some very broad speculation at this point, but what if one of the things that the Tartarians did have at their disposal was some idea or concept of time travel? And why has Tartaria come up recently in the last 4 to 5 years, all of a sudden, right? It's just sort of sprung up like a mushroom cap in the Mandela effect. Why is that? Are these concepts of time travel and timelines and other versions of history, are they emerging for really a very specific reason? And as a result of this, can we see Trump in a different kind of light, right? Like maybe he's not a clone, or maybe he's not a body double, but really what maybe he is somebody who does move in and out of time. And so that there would be a historical analog biological Trump, and then there would be another version of the same individual. These are interesting things to think about. And I know that they're really far out, right? They're pretty far out concepts, but when you look at the purported material of the hard drive, these hard drives, and the idea that the Chinese have been sort of biologically integrating into the West with very specific people so that they could essentially have genetic sleeper cells. That, how far out is that? At this point, to me, it's not that far out. So the takeaway here is what's going to happen with this information and what is going to be the fallout from this information, if indeed it's true, and if they can somehow parse it and make it accessible to not just the American people, but the world in general, it will throw China's advancement and progress in reverse. And when you get a country who is threatened like that, then things get very tense. Like, what would China be capable of, and what would they want to do in order to protect their assets? I think that's the bigger question. And that's the one that we need to be concerned about. You know, because China has not been a country that has wanted to do war on a physical scale, because what their kind of golden strategy is to retain as much kind of physical and industrial structure as possible. They don't want to go in and blow shit up and then have to rebuild it. That's another culture. That's another kind of idea. They want to go in and keep the structures intact and then change the internal structures so that there can be a transition from kind of one system to another. I think that's been their strategy. They do not want to go into a physical war. But if they're pushed to go into a physical war, that's a whole other story. And as this material gets hotter and hotter and hotter, the potential for that, I think, becomes more likely. And it's, you know, again, you know, I'm not telling you this so you freak out, okay? But if we're getting close to really these dead, what they really are, like dead man switches, and if it does involve China in the way that people are saying that it does, and that Bannon is purporting that it does, then it's big. And it will involve a number of U.S. politicians and graft and corruption and being on the take. And so that's kind of where we are with it. Let's see what you guys have to say about it. We must be over the target with these trolls. Oh, we got trolls. Ani, you guys are on. Hey, Johnny, what's going on, Johnny? Been thinking about you. I actually see this about Trump too, Robert, time traveler. Well, it's all about bot troll assault today. Oh my God, the trolls. It's okay. We got sheriffs in the house. We got good sheriffs in the house. Okay, Jacqueline, you take good care. MK, I've watched it 20 times. It's a gambler's dream. Oh, so Back to the Future. Tartaria has come up because Flat Earth ran its course. The next meta movie culled from all academic forums was the Russia new chronology stuff, stripped of the maths, blended into YT conspiracy bait. Yeah, so the Russia cosmology stuff is interesting. And I've never been like a flat Earth person. Like everybody would always want me to do shows on flat Earth, and I was like, I don't really want to go there. But the Tartaria stuff is interesting because it really suggests something quite unusual and quite different. And there are enough pieces with the Tartarian material that really bring up some interesting perspectives, like the incubators at the World's Fairs and shit like that. and the orphan trains. And again, these are, historically, at the very least, verifiable data points. So, and the Russian time cosmology stuff, the chronology stuff, is interesting as well. I mean, I looked into it, and the rewriting of Western history at a certain point is fascinating. I'm not sure I buy into it completely, because the guy that did it was basically working for, Soviet intelligence, and could this be just another, Soviet mean? And I'm not saying that there isn't a there there. I do think there is a there there, but I'm not sure it's the exact same there that they are sort of portraying. Okay. Let's see. Tartaria has a whole lot more reality than flat Earth, which has none. That's I do. That's my piece around the whole Tartarian stuff. Is that you look at some of these buildings, like, especially if John Levy's done a lot of work on Salt Lake City, because he lives in Utah, and he went back and he looked at a lot of these buildings that supposedly had just been built by the Mormons. And the story of the Mormons is an interesting one in and of itself, because they got run out of Illinois, and they had nothing really. They had nothing. They were in like these border wars inside of Illinois, and they got run out of Illinois with basically nothing. And then they go to Salt Lake City and build this gleaming empire with basically nothing in hardly any amount of time. And mathematically and time-wise, it doesn't fit. Yeah, it doesn't fit. So, but one of the things that that Levi points out is that even the buildings that they theoretically did build look very weathered, and the trees that are there in the early sort of days and photos of Salt Lake City are mature. They're not newly planted, and they're mature in kind of very manicured or laid out ways, right? So they're not just random trees. They're like trees in a row. And that was one of the things that he was able to really zero in on the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, was the maturity of the trees that were there, especially when they supposedly had the World's Fair, San Francisco, and how the tree that was there at the Palace of Fine Arts does not denote a tree that had just been planted. So there are a lot of interesting sort of anomalies here that I think are very much worth exploring. And we keep hearing about this concept of the reset, the reset, the reset, the reset. And that's another concept and vernacular associated with this idea around Tartaria, is this reset, and how history goes through these continued resets, like the Black Plague of Europe being kind of this vehicle for another reset. And here we are with this COVID-19, which again, technically speaking, is another vehicle for this supposed reset, and most of which has taken place under the sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn has been associated with being the reaper. And last night we got into Kronos, and how Kronos cuts off the testicles of Uranus and uses a scythe, in order to do that. And the scythe has been associated with Capricorn and time and the Reaper. And I didn't make this connection last night, but it's an interesting one, because when I think of Aquarius, I think of a sign that is probably the most unisexual astrological sign. And it's interesting from a client perspective. I have had more, I would say, female clients who are either flat out LGBT, right, Q, or you're just bisexual with strong associations with an Aquarian moon. So it's interesting, this castration of Uranus and sort of this unisexuality that I think is quite often associated with the sign of Aquarius. Let's see, what do we have here? I'm Aquarius. You're Aquarius. So, well, it's interesting. Okay, let me just do this. Let me just do this. I just blocked somebody. I like doing that. I have Aqua Moon. So I used to be pals with this guy who was an Aquarian. Okay. And, and I knew him to have a relationship with, a woman, an odd relationship with a woman. But I told the story before. One night we went drinking at a bar, and we made friends with this special forces Army Ranger guy who was 6'4", who had transitioned into a woman, right? So we made friends with this person, a very cool person. And at the end of the night, my Aquarian friend is like making out with her. Okay, so I'm not saying that all Aquarians are this way. I'm just telling you, like, I kind of saw it firsthand. Now, he didn't have moon in Aquarius. He had his moon in a different place in his chart. But I thought that was fairly interesting in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think Aquarius is a sign that's given to not being committed. Again, I knew a woman, really interesting woman, who moon in Aquarius, and she wound up marrying her first cousin. That's unusual, right? That is really unusual. So while it's not switching teams or sides, she decided to marry and have children with her first cousin. So you get into some of this with Aquarius, and this Kronos, castrating Uranus turns Uranus into this sort of very different kind of character and figure. Anyway, it's just a little, side road from last night's experience. Aqua rising is, not bisexual, but my inner me soul feels androgynous. Okay, there you go. Just newsflash, just check Google. An asteroid size of a refrigerator is heading toward Earth now. Nothing serious, just wanted everyone to know. Okay, well, size of a refrigerator. We'll see what happens. The crying game. Let's see. Vast swaths of Gen Z, Y, Western girls are bi. Astro is not the driver. Well, I don't know. Gen Z, a lot of Gen Z girls, right? Gen Z, Gen Y have Uranus in Aquarius and Neptune in Aquarius. So generationally, they do have a very strong Aquarian input in their charts. Just saying. Just saying. Yeah. But it's there from 1996. So even up through 2000 and roughly 5 or 6, when Neptune, it's actually 2011, when Neptune moves into Pisces, Gen Z has Neptune in Aquarius. So it starts off with Pluto in Sagittarius, Uranus in Aquarius, Neptune in Capricorn. Then there's a generation that has Pluto in Sagittarius, a little subgeneration. Pluto in Sagittarius, Uranus in Aquarius, and Neptune in Aquarius. That's very different. That's very, very different. And then eventually Uranus moves into Pisces, but Neptune in Aquarius is still there. So Gen Z, even though they don't have, well, it's just part of who they are. So in some ways, it sort of proves my point. Not that I need to be right. Sigurd, by the way, I would love for you to send me an email with your dates around Kubrick and his whereabouts. I want to send those to Jay Widener and see what Jay has to say, because you replied to me on the show a couple of weeks ago about the moon and Kubrick, and I did not want your comment to go unmentioned or unnoticed. So if you want to send me an email, I'll pass that on to Jay and see what he has to say, because he seems to be sort of the person that is really dialed into that thing. Okay. China is Tartarus. Well, it's interesting that these people, you know, that there are, got to get ready for work. Go get him, Joe. Have a great day at work. Proud of you. And I read your letters. Thank you for your conscious gifts. And I will use them at one point in time. What do we have here? Oh, we have an interesting person coming in. Look at that. Boy, we are really troll friendly today, right? Very high people. I am new from Brazil. You know, with my insights. Okay, well, keep your eye on Mateus. Keep your eye. The Praetorian Guard has their eye on you, Mateus. All right, I'm out of here for today. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step in what's possible. I'm sure we'll have more to share about the Biden tapes, the Biden hard drives, and then some. Okay. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And I do want to still kind of go back and revisit the Rhodesia stuff, but there is so much going on right now that it may have to wait a little bit. So if we have a flat spot tomorrow, we'll check it out tomorrow. All right. Bye for now.